So good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you at the start of what is going to be a very pivotal year for New Zealand. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to the Auckland Business Chamber for hosting us. Thank you to all of my parliamentary colleagues who have joined me here today. And most of all, thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. It's become a bit of a thing. Every year, political leaders come before the Auckland Business Chamber to talk about the state of the nation. And this year that conversation comes at a moment when the stakes have never been higher, because the choices that we make are going to determine whether New Zealand puts the future back in our own hands or continues to fall behind. If we just look around, we can see the challenges we face everywhere. People are working harder than ever and they're falling further behind. Groceries are costing more, power's costing more, insurance costs more, the list could go on. New Zealanders were promised that the cost of living would be fixed, and after 2.5 years it's worse. And it's not just the households across the country that are feeling that squeeze. The cost of doing business also keeps rising. And these affordability challenges don't exist in isolation. Productivity in New Zealand stagnated for years, while our international competitors have been pulling ahead of us. Technology's transforming entire industries, yet our investment in innovation and R&D remains stubbornly low. AI is already reshaping how businesses operate and how work gets done. As a country, New Zealand needs a plan for that. It needs to be a plan that we develop together, not something that we just let happen to us. And these are some of the biggest challenges that we face. The government's simply currently tinkering around the edges of those big challenges. That's leaving New Zealanders rightly asking a really fundamental question. Is hard work no longer enough? Can we still build a future here in New Zealand, or does opportunity now happen elsewhere? Looming over all of that is a huge issue around climate change already reshaping our economy and our communities. I want to acknowledge everyone that's been affected by the extreme weather events that we've experienced in the last few months. What were once 1 in a 100-year events are now happening every year. And they'll keep happening. And they're going to keep getting worse unless we do something about it. So we face a serious choice as a country. We can carry on treating each disaster as if it's an isolated event. We can clean up and then try and move on. Or we can recognise that the cost of inaction on climate change now far exceeds the cost of taking action. It's clear that the current government have made their choice on that. Not only have they slowed the pace of action when it comes to climate change, they cut $3.2 billion from the very fund designed to help us prepare for what's coming. It wasn't because the threats receded. It wasn't because the science has changed. It was so that they could have other priorities, like tax cuts for tobacco companies and overseas tech giants. Labour would make different choices. We'd invest in the industries that cut emissions, build resilience, and create jobs, because that's how we're going to grow a stronger New Zealand economy. Not in spite of action on things like climate change, but because of it. Cheaper renewable energy means affordable power bills for families and for businesses too. A more resilient economy means more jobs, more security, and less exposure to global shocks. Climate action is action on the cost of living. It's a smart economic investment. New Zealand should be a renewable energy superpower, driving new industries, creating jobs in our regions, and cutting emissions. We have the resources the talent, and the technology to do exactly that. The opportunity's sitting right in front of us, but it's not currently happening. Energy costs have gone up 18% in the last 2 years alone. Everyone's paying more. Households are paying more. Businesses are paying more. And it's clear the energy market's not operating the way we need it to operate. The answer to that is not to lock New Zealand into volatile global energy markets. It's to invest in cheap, clean power right here at home in New Zealand. Which is why the government's proposed gas import terminal is exactly the wrong call. It adds costs to every power bill in the country for decades. It locks us into expensive imported energy at the precise moment we should be building the renewable future that could bring our power bills down. So let me be very, very clear about this. We don't support it. We won't support it. And if we're in government before that deal is done, we will not go through with it. Kiwi households and small businesses deserve proper action on energy prices. That's what we'll be focused on delivering. Right now, too many New Zealanders feel the future's slipping away from them. Not through lack of effort. People are working so hard and they're playing by the rules. But hard work alone no longer guarantees the chance to get ahead. And I hear that everywhere I go, that anxiety about the future. Not just about paying today's bills, but about whether New Zealand's heading in the right direction at all. Every week, another 2,000 New Zealanders leave the country because they can't see a future for themselves here. Young professionals, nurses, teachers, tradies who we need to be building homes here in New Zealand. I've met a lot of them. They all say the same thing, or variants of the same thing. They love New Zealand, they want to raise their families here, but they simply can't afford to get ahead here. They can't afford to buy a house, and they can't find the jobs that they've trained so hard for. Nearly 240,000 people have left the country in the last 2 years. Take the population of Napier, Rotorua and New Plymouth, put them all together, pack them up and ship them out of the country. That is the equivalent of what has happened in New Zealand over the last 2 years. I'll run through those again. Napier, Rotorua and New Plymouth. The entire populations of those cities, the equivalent thereof, has left New Zealand in the last 2 years. That's talent that we cannot afford to lose. But it's talent we can win back. The problem in New Zealand isn't effort, it's opportunity. Hard work should pay off, but for too many people it doesn't, because the opportunities that they need aren't here anymore. And that's why people are frustrated and they're leaving. It's why they vote for change. But change only matters if it actually delivers. And change has to be built on solid foundations. For Labour, that means 3 things: jobs, health, and homes. They're not separate issues. They're how you build an economy that actually works for people. One that makes life easier, one that creates wealth, and one that keeps that wealth right here at home in New Zealand, with good jobs that pay enough to get ahead, an affordable health system, homes that are more affordable to buy and to rent. If we get those foundations right, everything else follows, including bringing down the cost of living. Right now, families are squeezed on the basics: groceries, power, the cost of seeing a doctor. Labor's going to put affordability at the centre of everything we do in this election campaign and in government. Starting with 3 free doctor's visits a year for every New Zealander. That'll put more money back in people's pockets, but it will also help people to stay healthy rather than end up with more expensive health needs because they have avoidable conditions. Lowering costs today isn't enough on its own though. We need to build the productive capacity here in New Zealand that will create good jobs and rising wages for everybody. Government can't just divide up the pie, it does need to have a plan to grow it. But that's going to mean more innovation, more exports, more industries that add value here in New Zealand. Because that's how we lift wages. It's how we fund the public services that we all rely on, and how we create opportunities that will keep our best and brightest here and attract many of those who have left back home to New Zealand. I take this very personally. I'm now part of a large blended family, and like many of you, I've got kids whose futures keep me up at night. Because I see young New Zealanders who are smart, hard-working, full of potential, making calculations that young people shouldn't need to make. Do they stay in the country that they love, with the people that they love, or do they leave to build the life that they have been working hard to create for themselves? And that just breaks my heart, because it means that we're failing them. Not because they're not good enough for New Zealand, but because we haven't made New Zealand good enough for them. But we can, we will, we must. This is why I got into politics. It's why I'm standing here with you today. Because I believe we can build a New Zealand where your kids and my kids never have to make that choice. Where they can build their future here in New Zealand. Where everyone can build their future here in New Zealand. So what's standing in the way of that? Why can't they get ahead right now? It isn't for lack of effort. It's because our economy has been rewarding the wrong things. For too long, too much capital's been locked up in housing speculation, driving up house prices, while businesses are struggling to find the investment that they need to be able to grow. That's why Labor will be introducing a simple, targeted capital gains tax on investment in commercial properties. Not on the family home, not on KiwiSaver, not on farms, not on businesses, but on speculative investments that are driving up asset prices without creating jobs or building productive capacity. That's going to help to unlock capital for productive investments that New Zealand so desperately needs. It's long overdue, and Labor will do it. Our Future Fund will back infrastructure and innovative Kiwi businesses so that we can create good, secure jobs right here in New Zealand. Too often, Kiwi businesses with great ideas are being forced to look overseas for capital. And then they end up being bought out by foreign investors who take the jobs, the innovation, and the wealth away with them. The Future Fund is part of our way we can change that. Instead of selling assets and waiting for foreign investors, which is what this government's plan seems to do, we want to use more of what we already own to create more lasting wealth here at home. That's how we make New Zealand a place people choose to come to, not one that they continue to leave from. I know we didn't get everything right when we were in government last time. Many of you have been very clear on what you think we did wrong. But one thing is clear, we were trying to do too much too fast, and we weren't focused enough. And here's what I also know. New Zealanders didn't vote for what they got instead. They were promised lower costs and a stronger economy. 3 years later, this government's delivered neither. In fact, those things are getting worse, and they continue to get worse. Costs are up, job losses are up and continuing, and the economy has shrunk. That's the record of the current government. 3 more years of that is only going to set us back further, because they don't have a plan. New Zealand is stagnating. I will not stand by and watch that happen. New Zealand is better than this, and New Zealanders deserve better than this. So our next Labour government will be different. We'll be focused on what matters the most. I'll be putting affordability at the heart of decisions, all of the decisions that I will make. And I'll be expecting all those who serve in government with me to do the same. We've already given you an idea of what that can look like. Free doctors' visits, an investment fund that builds for New Zealand's future, and there's more to come. We're going to be making further announcements later in the year as we get closer to the election. But I want to be very, very clear on this. I want to know that I can deliver on any promises that I make. That's the standard that I'll be holding myself to and our next Labour government to. Because frankly, Kiwis have had enough of promises that aren't kept. And I don't want to repeat that cycle. We won't try and do everything in our first term. We'll be focusing on what matters the most and delivering on those things. On jobs and wages. Backing businesses that make the economy work. From innovative companies creating the jobs of the future, to the local cafe, the tradie, the family dairy. And on costs. That means we won't be adding new charges to people, like increasing every household's power bill to pay for a gas import terminal, or tolling the existing Auckland Harbour Bridge to pay for a new crossing. I'll be clear about this. Labour does support a second harbour crossing, but we won't penalise people for using the one that already exists. Under a Labour government, there will be no tolling of the existing Auckland Harbour Bridge. I'm not promising perfection. Where we make mistakes, I'll take responsibility for those. But I'm promising this, a government that puts the cost of living first, a government that partners with business to create jobs and raise wages, a government that invests in our people and backs our potential, not just managing the country, building it. New Zealanders deserve a government with that level of ambition. And this election is the chance for every New Zealander to demand it. We can vote for re-election on the cost of living, lower power bills, cheaper healthcare, wages that actually rise, or a Prime Minister who tells you just to be patient while groceries continue to go up and Kiwi families fall further behind. We can choose a government that backs New Zealand businesses to compete and to succeed, or one whose entire plan is to wait and hope for foreign investment to solve our problems. We can choose a country where young people build their futures here, or 3 more years of watching 2,000 New Zealanders give up and leave the country every single week. Re-election on the cost of living, good jobs that pay enough to get ahead, healthcare you can afford, homes that don't take up all of your income, jobs, health, homes. It's not a slogan, it's a to-do list. The Prime Minister is going to spend this year saying he needs more time before things will start to come right. Time's not a strategy when you're heading in the wrong direction. We need to change course, and Labour knows how to do that. This year's election is a choice between 2 futures. One path that's saying, do less, wait more, and hope for the best. The other that says, let's fix the cost of living, let's back ourselves as a country, and let's build a future made here in New Zealand. I know which one of those paths I believe in. And I know New Zealand can do better. We're ready to build a future that works for everyone. A future with cheaper healthcare and more affordable power bills. A future with better jobs and higher wages. A future that backs New Zealand businesses and industries to compete and to succeed. A future that attracts the best talent and investment. Where we make things here and we stand on our own 2 feet. Where our kids don't have to leave to get ahead. That's the future that New Zealand deserves. That is the future that Labour will deliver. A future made in New Zealand, not made for us, made by us, made by all of us. So let's build that future together. Thanks very much.